Hi, my name is Liz Munoz-Huber with pronouns she, her, and I'm the senior producer of visual storytelling here at the National Audubon Society. We're coming to you live across YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram from Nina Mason Pulliam Rio Salado Audubon Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Today, I'll be speaking with Juliana Gomez of Rio Salado Audubon Center, Gil Morris of the Southwest Monarch Study, and Trisha Bailiff of the Office of Environmental Programs for the City of Phoenix. Thank you so much for joining me today. Could you introduce yourselves to our audience? And we'll start with Gail.
Hi everyone, my name is Gail Morris. I coordinate the Southwest Monarch Study here in the Southwest states.
Hi everyone, I'm Trisha Bailiff. I'm, as said, am with City of Phoenix Office of Environmental Programs. I deal with our wildlife and our surface water programs.
Hi, I'm Juliana Gomez. I'm the Senior Education Coordinator here at Nina Mason Pulliam Rio Salado Audubon.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, well, let's dive into some questions. And if anyone on the live has any questions, send us a comment and we'll try to answer some along the way. But let's start with Juliana. Could you describe to me like where we're at? Where is Rio Salado Audubon Center and what kind of habitat does it provide for both birds and butterflies?
Yeah, so we're here at the Rio Salado Audubon Center. We're a nature center located just in the heart of the Phoenix Nature Rio Restoration Area, and we are located right on the Rio Salado, which is Spanish for salt river. So a lot of people don't realize that there is a river in this amazing area right in Phoenix. And like I said, we are a restoration area, which means we are always working on this land to make sure that it is a habitat that birds want to come to. And we are located right along a really big migration. So it being really strong and nutrient dense makes it easy for the birds to stop here. We do things like education, conservation. We partner with many local communities around to help us pull off making this a really strong environment. And yeah, we rely a lot on our local community.
Awesome. Trisha, could you tell us a little bit about what the Rio Salado Restoration Area is and what's the city vision for this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So Rio Salado Habitat Restoration Area is our very first river restoration project in Phoenix. We have two others. One is partially complete and one is in the feasibility study stage. So we're really excited about having all of this. We'll end up with 19 miles of restored river habitat through Phoenix, which is really exciting to think about. And you know, Rio Salado being the first one was done in 2009, fully complete. And was our very first area in Phoenix also to have a monarch butterfly way station. And back in 2011 was the first one we had. And then in 2021, the city expanded our program through joining the National Wildlife Federation Mayor's Monarch Pledge. So we have a lot of other work that's going on related to biodiversity associated with the Monarch Pledge as well across the city and not just along the river as well.
Awesome. And so getting more into like the monarch stuff, Gail, can you tell us what the Southwest Monarch Study is and what we were doing today at the center?
Sure. This is a time of peak migration through the area. And so one of the things we wanted to look at was tagging monarch butterflies. And that is the main thrust of the Southwest Monarch Study, is to tag monarchs during their fall migration, but also to monitor their presence throughout the year, offer education opportunities, and we also do workshops around town like this one today. So the reason we're trying to track the monarchs is to learn where they go when they come through the Phoenix area. And the very main reason that you have birds come here is the reason monarchs like coming here. They love riparian areas where there's a place for cover, where there's food resources for them to refuel on their way.
And Gil, how does the community input play a role in the work that you do?
That's the fun part. Everyone can learn how to tag a monarch. Everyone can help us when they see a blue tagged monarch and report it so we know where they've been seen. And from their efforts, we've had over 95 recoveries Some of our monarchs through Arizona have gone to Mexico. Some of them have gone to the coast of California. And now through tagging further in Utah and Nevada and other states, we're starting to learn where those monarchs head.
Awesome. And then, so Gail, can you tell us a little bit more about why it's important to track and tag these butterflies and what that information tells us once you get that?
Yeah, well, we do track and we try to learn a little bit more about what their favorite nectar resources are. That's some of the data we gather as they're tagged. Their gender, to see are males or females using the same routes. But more importantly, as we start gathering this information, we can start gathering the resources of what are their migration flyways. Where are the common routes we keep seeing them appear? And sometimes they're seen en route in ways where people are doing butterfly counts. And those are the places that we can help restore if needed.
Yeah, that sounds a lot of very similar to the work that Audubon is doing to overlay, where migrating birds are going and trying to make sure that we're focusing our resources to the places that they need. And I feel like this sounds like there might be a lot of overlap with that. Speaking of which, Gail, what resources are the types of things that butterflies need on those southbound journeys?
Right. During this southern migration this time of year to the overwintering sites, they need to refuel. So they're looking for pockets of nectar along rivers. They're looking for things like seep willow, sunflowers, asters, fall blooming plants that are along the way. Tall trees give them protection on hot afternoons where they're coming through the area, and a place to spend the night. So they're looking for little sanctuaries, little pockets along rivers in particular, but in backyards and other places in city parks as well.
Awesome. Juliana, for birds, what kind of species migrate through the center, and how do we know that? Do you know a little bit about how we track them?
Yeah, we see so many different species here, which is so cool. Like I said before, we see over 200 different species here, depending on the season. Some fun ones that everyone loves are the Anna's hummingbird. They see them come, they leave for a little bit and then come back, and they're just so beautiful. So everyone sees those. We get flocks and flocks of cormorants here. We have the Southwest willow. We have so many. And the reason we know that they are coming here is mainly through citizen science. That is kind of the main way, and using the eBird reports. A lot of our visitors, both local and around the world, which is really cool. We have people from all over the place come here, and they come and they have their eBird app or using whatever app to help identify, and they're creating lists, and it kind of creates alerts for us to look at and the fun things that are stopping by. So citizen science is really something we rely on, especially it's a big area, and everyone has different eyes for things. So yeah, that's a really big one.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Anyone can really contribute to the science that our scientists are using to figure out those restoration plans or those conservation action or things that we can do to protect these birds and these places. Juliana, do you mind walking us through what birds need on these journeys? Are they similar to what monarchs need that Gail kind of detailed, or?
Yeah, of course. Gail pretty much hit most of them. They're very, very similar. So migration just takes a lot of energy for bird and monarchs and pollinators. And they need fuel stations, right? So this place here is an amazing wetland that is rich of a lot of food, right? So there's different seeds, berries, there's nectar for them, so just a really rich area. There's also areas for them to be able to rest and kind of protect themselves from both predators and from the weather. And yeah, it's just a great spot to stop on their journey both north and south. So pretty much exactly the same as the monarchs, which is great because if you're trying to help one species, you're helping a bunch of others. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, all of these different it seems all of the, because they rely on the same ecosystems, they're all really connected, and so you can't, if you're helping out that that area, that habitat, that really plays a big role in the outcomes of both these birds and monarchs and butterflies that we love to see. Going back to the one thing that both of them need, which is native plants or native pollinators. Trisha, why is it important to plant native plants and to monitor and remove invasive plants? And how does this work support this region as a critical stopover site?
Yeah, well, especially in an urban area, I think that the expansion of native plants is really critical. I think both of these lovely ladies have touched really nicely on the importance of having points of habitat, right? Stopover points, I call it, when I'm talking to people, I call it a web of habitat resources. We're really trying to create a web of native habitat resources because these species evolved with these plants in the Sonoran Desert, right? So the Sonoran Desert is where we are. Everything, the insects, the soils, the plants, the other wildlife, the birds, they all evolved together, right? And so when we expand native plants and native habitat, it does help us to support a lot of this ecological web that we're really trying to create. And it doesn't have to be, Rio Salado is great. This is fantastic. We love it, and we want to continue to expand it. But it doesn't always have to be something this big, right? So something that you put in your yard can create that stopover, that moment that something can stop and rest. Plus, it gives you the great opportunity to have a much more alive yard, right? And invasive species are important to control because they obviously, some of them are hyper competitive. That's why they're invasive, and so they can push out some of our native species. They usually don't support quite as many of the local species as the native plants have evolved with it. And so we really do want to focus on replacing invasive species habitat with native habitat. Yeah. But again, also in our urban area, really important to expand that in little pockets of yards, parks, city property, but also private property. Even a few potted plants on an apartment patio can all help to create habitat for these species.
Yeah, and that's such an important point. I live in New York City, and I don't have access to a lot of like personal space where I can have a native plant garden, but there's different ways you can do it, like having like a potted plants outside like your window, or like out on your like patio, or like working in a community garden if you like live close to one. There's really all these ways that we can provide those like little pockets of stopover habitat for the birds we like to welcome every season, and other,
what a better way to support your fruit garden than having more habitat to bring pollinators in.
No, and they're so nice to watch.
And they're beautiful to watch.
Yeah. Trisha, specifically because we're in this like such unique habitat, could you tell me a little bit more about the native plants that thrive here in the Sonoran Desert?
Oh yeah, we are, I believe, the most diverse desert in North America. So we have just such a wide plant palette of just absolutely gorgeous plants that make Sonoran Desert their home. I think sometimes we think about deserts as, bare sand and cactus are great, and we have plenty of cactus, and we love our cactus. We love our cacti, but we also have just a really broad range of trees and shrubs and wildflowers with poppies and sunflowers. We have native sunflowers that Gail was talking about. My personal favorite is the pink fairy duster, because it has really beautiful, cool flowers.
So cool.
It really just looks like its name. I love it. And then we have I don't even know what to say. Honestly, there's so many that I could list off the top of my head, but we do also have native species of milkweed, which is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. And so we also really emphasize the importance of nectar plants for our monarch butterflies, but also let's make sure we have some of our native milkweeds as host plants for those. Desert milkweed is one of those. The monarch caterpillars love it. We had one milkweed plant in the spring that supported 4 monarch caterpillars at the same time. And it was fine, but they love that thing, and you wouldn't think it because it has these kind of narrow leaves to it, but they love it. So yeah, we have, if you want something for your yard, the Sonoran Desert has something that would cover it.
Yeah, no, and it's so interesting to know like how different it can be, just like depending on where you are. I like grew up in California, and so we also experienced the monarch migration there. My mom has a butterfly garden, so like being able to tell like where it works best for your specific area is so important. And we have like a native plant database with Audubon, so you can like put your whole zip code in and like find out what would be best for your specific like zip code location.
Yeah, and where in your yard you're going to put it. Is
Yeah,
it
exactly.
full sun? Is it partial shade? Because a lot of our desert plants do really well with full sun, but you need to know ahead of time where you're
Yeah.
going to put them.
Since we're still on the topic of like native plants, Juliana, Tricia, could you describe some of the benefits to people that these native plants bring?
Yeah. Well, just they're easy. I guess that's like they're like having a native plant, whether that's like, well, here you really want native plants because like it's just such a harsh like environment. But anywhere, like it's just so much easier. You have less water, like you have to worry about it less. So it's just like so much easier. Also, kind of like Trisha said before, like you are attracting the wildlife that's supposed to be there. So if you want to see hummingbirds and all that, like just plant them in your yard and you'll see them. Like it's like, and yeah, using that database to just like help you find exactly what's supposed to be there. And they're pretty. That's a fun
They
thing,
are
but
beautiful.
yeah,
We
I
have
think
beautiful
yeah,
plants.
yeah, they're like weird,
Yeah.
but they're so cool. Weird in the
Some are
coolest
weird.
way. Because we have such a special environment here that I think the biggest benefit for people is really they're easy to take care of. You have something beautiful. You're attracting great wildlife that everyone loves to see, and you're also making the environment just way more like diverse and just healthier.
Yeah, and I would just add, and I think you touched on it a little bit, here in Phoenix in particular, we have to think about urban heat island. We have to think about how we're using water really carefully as well. And so the using native plants really helps with water conservation. You can have a beautiful yard with less water when you use our native Sonoran Desert plants. And then, of course, we also have, the benefits of shading the ground, helping to release some of that overnight heat that can get trapped in pavement and impervious surfaces. And so all of that can really help to make our urban area beautiful and wise.
Yeah.
And saves a person money.
Yeah.
And saves a person money on water, and lots of different benefits come from
Overall,
that.
great.
Yeah.
Yes, when you let nature take care of your plants, it's a lot easier for everyone.
I gotta say, I have a native landscaping at my home, and it's lovely because maintenance is pretty low key.
Yeah.
So I love it for that.
A lot less work.
Yeah.
More benefits, less
Absolutely.
work. Sounds like the perfect combination.
2 thumbs up.
We're gonna like take a step back and look more about like what drives like you to do this work and like what keeps you going in this like good fight to restore this space, like make sure that like it's a healthy, thriving environment for birds, for monarchs, for all of the creatures, for the beaver that maybe like shows up occasionally at Rio Salado. Like what really keeps you going? And maybe we can start with Gail. Do you mind starting with you?
No, not at all. I think it's because there's always a surprise. Every time you think, okay, I figured this part out, there's something new that comes in. And it's always exciting, or an insight that someone makes when they come in. We learn a new angle about monarchs. We learn a new angle about butterflies today. Before we came here, we went back over to the habitat for a little bit, and we didn't see monarchs there yet, but we were watching queens flying in off the river and coming to the habitat, and we got up to about 12 before we left. And so we haven't really seen the queen butterflies doing that, which are, in the same family. So there's always something new to look at, and I think that's what drives me the most. And just seeing when you encounter monarchs for the first time when they've been gone is always just such an exciting event to see they're back. Let's see how many come through, how could we help them on the way, and just see the excitement of people around us.
Yeah, so much of these like migrating species are great because they ground us in like the seasons and like the different phases of the year. I was talking to someone about like, oh, I can see the cormorants flying. It feels like fall in Phoenix. And I just love that we can connect these natural elements to really ground ourselves and like where we are. Trisha, what keeps you going in working in this like line of work?
Yeah, I think part of it is what Gail was talking about, but I really think it's the engagement that I get to see in others, and as I get to see the program grow and I get to see change happening at the city, in our community, it's very energizing. It really is. I care about it just from my background, I think. And I, read Aldo Leopold at a young age and really embraced the land ethic idea, right? Of that we're not separate from nature, we're part of it, and that we have a responsibility and a stewardship for it. And so personally, that's one of my personal ethics. But for the work that I'm doing at the city, I think it's actually really satisfying to see how engaged people get around this work and how excited people are for it. And it keeps me motivated to keep going and to keep making those small strides, and to remember that it doesn't have to be huge overnight change, that small steps lead to big change, and to celebrate those small steps along the way.
Yeah, that's such an important note about like the small steps. Like, success doesn't happen overnight. Like transforming a space into something that's thriving, especially when there's been a lot of invasive, there's a lot of neglect. It takes a long time, and it takes many generations to like move things in a certain direction. And I think all of those, everyone coming together to do that, like really ends up with these big, celebrations. Like, oh, we have like a thriving like environment right here where we see migrating birds, and we see monarchs, and we see other like creatures and like bugs and things. Juliana, since you're like so close to the Rio Salado Center, like what do you, what most inspires you when you're working here day in and day out?
Yeah, kind of similar to what Trisha said, but being an educator and having that background in environmental science, creating the connection for people, like the same connection I have, like helping them find that connection. I strongly believe that like if you're able to connect with like any part of nature or anything here, you're gonna care about it way more, and you're gonna take that with you. So my biggest thing when I come to work every day is whenever we have visitors, whether it's a school group of kids or just someone traveling and just stopped by, I want to make sure that they find some connection here, whether it's like a silly little bug that they found like crawling around, or they saw the beaver, or a really cool bird. Like, we have such a big range here, so it's a lot of room for opportunity for people to connect. And I really think that that kind of thing stays with you, because that's how it was for me growing up. Like, I found a connection, and that's why I care about it throughout my whole life. So my main goal always is to create that connection for them, and then they can go home, talk about it to their parents, and tell them like this cool thing they saw or a cool plant they saw, and then kind of creates a snowball effect from there.
Yeah, there's just so many wonderful like entry points, and it doesn't really matter which way you get there. Like helping that one specific thing ends up having like an effect of helping the other one. So if you're like, oh, I'm all in on monarchs, like I'm here just for the monarchs, like you can do that, and you still would be helping like the migrating birds, or helping like the other creatures that are coming through that like rely on this space. If you're like I know plenty of people who are like super interested in plants, and I think like what they can do is crazy, but like knowing that like that deep interest like services so many other that like larger web that you're talking about, Trisha. It's like really great how that can like work together. So I guess somewhat relatedly, our audiences span the entire hemisphere, and they want to know how they can support like the great work happening here on like both a local level, but also what they can do at home wherever they are. Is there anything what can they do to help?
Yeah.
Do you want to start with?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah. Well, if you're local, you can go to our website. And we are always having events for conservation cleanup days, to pulling invasive species, to planting native plants, all of that kind of stuff, or just attending a community event and supporting the community. But if you're not here, honestly, and you maybe like can't make it out, just going online and finding like local small things in your town. Most towns have like a fun project that they're doing, or a local group. We have tons just here. If you just Google like Conservation Day near me, there's plenty of them. So joining those small local things happening, getting your hands dirty, because there's just so many around, and everyone has such amazing ideas, and we just need hands. So if you can go to one of those, that's awesome. Of course, always donating to the organizations that you love really helps. And the easiest thing to do is just learning about it. Like, I feel like that's the biggest one, like learning about the plants, learning about what's in your area, and just having a little care and learning for it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're local to like Phoenix, you can always hit up the Rio Salado Audubon Center. And then if you're curious like what Audubon centers are near you, I think we have like a Audubon near you, so you can find where you are and like figure out how you can get connected to that center, but also to the programs that they also support, since a lot of these centers really rely on like these like these partnerships to make things work. Trish, what about you? What would your pitch to improve the
local and far away? A local, obviously, my first pitch is Nature Fest Phoenix, which is coming up on November 8th. It's going to be super fun, which is also going to be at the Rio Salado Habitat Restoration Area. But we actually have some informational resources online. If you just Google phoenix.gov and Monarchs, it should come up. In terms of our Monarch Pledge and our biodiversity work, and how we're really trying to use the Monarch Pledge as a stepping stone for this larger work. For people who are not in the Phoenix area, I think one of the most important things that could be done is to get outside, to go outside, see what you have, learn about your native plants. What do you love? Which of your native plants do you love? And bring those into your yard. And then just watch what happens. Watch what happens. Sit down with your cup of coffee in the morning and have a relaxing morning watching the wildlife in your yard that comes to you, and then also get out to your natural areas. Make sure that you're supporting your parks and your state parks and your local parks and all of that. There's a ton of research about the emotional, physical, social, mental benefits of getting out into nature and into green spaces. And so let's take those opportunities to get out there, especially if you live in an area that doesn't become 115 degrees in the summer. You don't want to go outside of air conditioning. So I'm jealous of all of you, and please let me live vicariously through you. But I think that's important. And then, of course, advocate. If you wish your city was engaged in something and that they're not engaged, let them know. Let us know. We want to hear from residents. I'm sure your town does too.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Gail, what are some things that people can do to help monarchs on their journees?
Yeah, if you're local, come out and tag with us. We have some events listed on our website of swmonarchs.org. We have one actually scheduled next week. We're going to make another attempt at tagging again. Look for blue tags. And there's a new thing you can do. We're going to be starting to use radio tags, and if you download the free Project Monarch app, when you're out walking, put your app on it. See if you pick up, especially if you see a monarch, and see if you could pick up its beat. And then we can find, you'll get a whole record of where it was tagged and how it's coming down. So there's so many ways you could get involved. Tapping into what Trisha's been doing, look at your city being a monarch city, and you can get engaged in so many different ways of being alive with them. Just so much to do. Get outside, see what you love out there, how you can draw them to your yard.
Thank you. That's such a nice reminder about like a nice, circle back to the citizen science of it all, of like how everyone really is empowered to make a small change by just observing what's going on around you and making notes of it where it makes sense, whether that's eBird or it's the Monarch app. Like, there's so many ways we can contribute to improving our landscape for everyone. But I think we're about to wrap. I do want to ask one last question, and that's, what's your favorite butterfly or bird story? How do these like two lovely little creatures inspire you? And let's start again with Juliana.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about this one, and I think I'm newer to birding since I started working here, which has been really cool because as I learned, I get to teach other people that. And since I started, there's been this black phoebe in the corner over there, and it's been there this whole time for 2 years now, and it just hangs out there this whole time. And it's my favorite thing. Every time we have kids come, I show them that way. The bird walks that we have on Saturdays, I show it to them. And that, to me, just makes me feel so good that we have such a great habitat, and it feels super safe. It has what it needs to survive and just be good there. So that's something that's really special to me and makes me feel like what we're doing here is really good and beneficial, and it's just a good safe space for the birds, and I can rely on it being there and showing all the kids like something cool. Yeah, that's definitely my
That's such
favorite.
a good story.
Yeah.
Trish, what about you?
Oh, mine's a little bit more, I don't know, not as like peaceful. Okay, but it's awesome. So I'm gonna tell it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few years ago, we had a peregrine falcon family that was nesting downtown Phoenix, nesting peregrine falcons. It was so cool. They were nesting on a building, a county building, and I am on the 14th floor of City Hall. And the peregrine falcon caught a pigeon right outside my window. It was awesome.
Nature in action.
It was so cool. And that is the biologist in me coming out, because I just thought it was right there, and it was just really cool to watch and experience that really just beautiful raptor doing its thing. But I also really love when people call me and they notice things and they care about them, and they call and like, something's happening. Are the burrowing owls okay? Are the burrowing owls okay? And I love that. I love that people notice and that they care enough to call about it.
Yeah, that's such a fun story about the peregrine falcon.
The peregrine falcon is awesome, but not everyone agrees that that's awesome. But I thought it was awesome.
It just shows you everyone has a different way to connect.
Different way of connecting, exactly. Yeah, I mean it also goes to show like how birds really can be anywhere, like even in these like urban centers.
Yeah.
If you pay attention, the world will open up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Gail, what about you? Do you have a favorite like butterfly story for us?
Yeah. You know, when we're sending tags to people, a lot of times we're getting in conversations with people, email conversations back and forth, and we get to know people, we get to know their stories, we hear the heartwarming stories they share. But at the end of the season, when monarchs are flying in, maybe in November, a lot of them that fly in at that time of year, if they're not migrating, are near the ends of their lives, and they're very ragged, really shredded wings, and they come into your backyard and they decide, I'm going to live the rest of my life here. And people will always send pictures and say, look who's ending, look who's living their final days with me. And it's always really heartwarming. And it's always right around Days of the Dead, that this happens. And it's like this whole seasonal thing of the cherishing the stories you've heard and putting it in perspective with the experience they're seeing in their own backyard.
Yeah, and that's so special to, have that be, a part of your life, like understanding that this is nature coming to you to, spend its rest of its time here, and then it's like also a cycle of renewal, right? Because next season you'll get more monarchs, and sometimes they'll continue on, to Mexico or to wherever they want to be, wherever they're going to overwinter, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes what they've done is enough. It's such a lovely way to end this live. We have the whole spectrum of emotions. We have wonder, we have curiosity, and then like this very heartfelt, cycle of rejuvenation. Thank you all so much for joining, Juliana, Gail, Trisha, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll drop in the comments where you can keep up to date with the Rio Salado Audubon Center, with the Southwest Monarch Study, and with the Rio Salado Restoration Area. To tune into later dates for our Bird Migration Celebration Tour, please head to audubon.org/bird migration celebration. And as a part of our Bird Migration Celebration, we want to hear your story about your connection with birds. Learn how to share your bird journey by going to audubon.org/mybirdjourney. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.